So this last year wasn't the best that it could have been. And frankly, for most of my patients as well as myself, we'd love to have a do-over on parts of this last year. And so instead of helping you get a start for this next coming year with New Year's resolutions, which you'll inevitably break like everybody else does, I want to help give you 12 tips to make this year your best year ever. Tip number 1, ditch the news. If you've ever noticed, when you watch the news, whether it's streaming online or on network TV, doesn't really matter, what you'll find is that there's a particular type of advertisement that plays around the news. And what are those? Those are for drugs for anxiety and depression and those types of behavioral issues. And why is that? Well, the news typically doesn't report on a lot of kittens being rescued out of trees and lots of good things. It typically is very sensational. Why is that? It helps keep you coming back. If it's sensational, it's entertaining, and you want to keep watching. So what is it reporting on? War, bad weather, and other disasters, politics, and that type of thing. And so they know that it's going to increase your anxiety level. So if you're already a little anxious, it's going to put it up there. Even if you don't think that you're anxious, there's evidence to say that having the news on in the background increases the stress on your body. How do we know this? Well, there's this great study where they were trying to help patients increase their blood pressure because of injury and illness and such like that. And they put these individuals all on saline, and then they gave some of them a drug called Lefafed that helps to raise their blood pressure. Other people, they just set in front of the news. After 15 minutes, the effects were pretty astounding. The blood pressure of the people watching the news actually increased more than the individuals that were on the drug that was designed to help increase their blood pressure. What that says is that the brain is listening to the news. So even if you don't feel stressed, it's stressed. And that's part of the survival mechanism of the brain, and it's a good thing. So if you want to help decrease the amount of anxiety and background tension that you feel, even if you can't associate it with the news, turn off the news. Go and scan the headlines every now and then. Or after conversations with people, when they bring up something, if it's something that interests you, go look it up. But otherwise, cut out the news. Tip number 2, put down the technology. Research is showing that most Americans are using any kind of a smart device, whether it be a phone or a pad or whatnot, at least 3.75 hours a day. That's a lot of time. That's replacing television and such because of streaming, but also because of social media and texting and those types of things. Doesn't matter. The reality is that we're using it way too much. What I'm seeing in my patients is that they're coming in and they're having problems very much associated with the use of the technologies, with their hands, elbows, shoulders, necks, upper backs. Upper backs are getting tighter and tighter all the time, and that leads to neck pain, low back pain, and such like that. And it really gets in the way of performance. It also means that most of us are much more inactive than we think we are every day, and that has a profound effect. In fact, research is showing that even in children who are using technology are increasing their inactivity every day by hours at a time, and most of us as parents are using technology as a babysitter. Terrible of us, but that's increasing children's experience of high blood pressure earlier and earlier in their lives. So what can we do about this? Well, there are a lot of apps, and even on the iPhone and things like that, they now have apps that allow you to set kind of the parameters for your use. Use those apps. There's some great ones out there, but even within a device itself, they have ways of augmenting how much it notifies you and those types of things that allow you to disengage from your technology more frequently. The other thing that they're showing is that technology use before bedtime is horrible. It just destroys your sleep. In fact, it could destroy your circadian rhythm so badly that whatever sleep you do get is not restorative, and so you're not not performing as well during your day because you're not recovering as much during your night. So what can you do about that? Well, the easy thing, shut off the technology 2 hours ahead of bedtime. Put it down, don't look at it, don't look at your TV or anything. Read a book, do something like that. Have a conversation with your spouse or significant other and disengage from your technology at least 2 hours before your sleep. Have a better sleep, have better performance during your day, and get more active. Tip number 3, drink 32 ounces of water every morning, first thing. A good rule of thumb for the amount of hydration that all of us need, how much water we need, if you take your body weight divided by half and then use that number as the number of ounces that you need every day, that will get you right in there in the ballpark. 2 things that really affect my performance is sleep and hydration. And if I don't get enough, I get pain, my day goes on very slowly, my brain isn't working as well, and my performance in the gym is just trash. So getting to that, for me, 200 pounds, getting to that anywhere from 90 to 110, 120 ounces of water every day, I feel a huge difference. There's hardly any supplement or anything that helps me more than getting better hydration. And the other thing that it does is if you get this first hit of water every morning, if you've been following popular psychology and this cultural phenomenon of Dr. Jordan Peterson and his 12 rules for life, it helps you get that first win of the day that he talks about, and how important that is for you to get that first win of the day. That helps to build you up and helps you set up success throughout your day. So first thing in the morning, 32 ounces of water, and then trying to get in the rest of that water throughout the day. But if you get in that 32 ounces, the rest of the day gets easier. Oh, and one last thing. If you don't like water, well, jazz it up if you need to. Put flavorings in it, get some fruit and put it in your refrigerator with fruit in your water. So that way it has some flavor to it. But if that isn't working, grab some sparkling water, drink some coffee, but not a ton, and stay away from sodas. Tip number 4, meditate, pray, and contemplate at least 10 minutes every day. So just like the converse of watching the news, which raises your blood pressure and puts physiological stress on you, even doing 10 minutes of prayer, contemplation, and meditation every day helps to reduce blood pressure, stress, and such like that. What they find in the research is that this 10 minutes of, at least 10 minutes of prayer and contemplation and meditation every day for somebody who is well practiced at it, has a profound effect on the amount of cortisol, which is your stress hormone, your chronic stress hormone that your body produces on a day-by-day basis. What that does is that it helps to clear up your mind. It helps you produce more testosterone and other growth hormones that allow you to recover from things like stress and injury and disease and working out. It also helps you get better sleep, which helps with all of those things as well. So getting into the practice of just sitting alone quietly for 10 minutes. And if you can get into a practice, so if you have a faith or a spirituality that has a prayer component to it, learn those things so that way you can work that into that 10 minutes worth of time. The other opportunity is that there's a plethora of meditative devices and techniques out there that you can search on the internet and find one that works for you, but then get it into your day, 10 minutes. And I recommend personally doing that 10 minutes first thing every morning, waking up with enough time to take care of yourself, to do your 10 minutes. So that way the rest of your day, it goes better and better. And that means that between your water and your meditation, you've had 2 big wins every day. So 10 minutes, prayer, contemplation, meditation. Tip number 5, exercise to change your body, your hormones, and your life. How do you do this? Well, one of the things that we know for a fact is that exercise has a huge effect, and effect better than drugs, on things like anxiety and depression, to change lifestyle diseases like obesity and diabetes and such. And then, of course, if you're an athlete, you know the importance of exercise for improving your performance, and your recovery from exercise is exercise. So one of the things that I have found over the last couple of years, especially during the shutdown period of time, is taking on Dr. Ellington Darden's 30-10-30 Metabolic Challenge. Now, this is an extremely simple exercise program that I recommend that all of my patients now do at least one time a year, if not a couple of times a year. And it's very simple. It's just a simple series of exercises, nothing complicated or exotic at all, but using a scheme of 30 seconds of a negative, so a very slow descending movement in the exercise, followed by 10 repetitions, followed by 30 seconds of a negative. It is a butt kicker. If you've never experienced high lactate type of exercise, this is one of those. And what you find is at the end of the 4-week, that's all it is, a 4-week challenge of exercises, that you will see an increase in muscle mass, a decrease in fat, and your body will just generally feel better. You'll have less pain and other aspects like that. The other thing that we found is that on my patients is that I've had several of them that have been able to get off of their testosterone and other hormone replacement therapies. So consider the 30-10-30 Metabolic Challenge by Dr. Ellington Darden on T Nation. It will change not just your body, it'll change your hormones, and it will definitely change your life. Tip number 6. Move. Not just move, get into some mobility training. When I say mobility is different than flexibility. Flexibility is just how far a soft tissue, a muscle will stretch and allow you to move. But the mobility is down to the joint, and muscles move joints. So if joints are moving well, then muscles move as well as they possibly can. In fact, if you're getting tight, if you feel like your hamstrings are tight all the time, things like that, it's because they're tightening up in order to protect a joint. So what do? Well, there's a lot of mobility out there, a lot of great systems now to teach you how to move. And I come from a background of rehabilitation, and I found a group called Z Health, and they teach as some of their basic inputs, whether it be for therapy or for performance, a series of joint mobility drills that I think is great, and they put it into really simple gym type of presentations. I produced a thing called the Shinbox. It's based off from a ground fighting technique, drill, that allows an individual to develop mobility on the ground, but it can be adapted from the ground to standing. And in doing this nice flow and breaking it up into pieces that allow you to develop one piece of mobility and then build upon that over time, you can get good full body mobility that helps not only get the joints moving better and increasing the health of those joints, but get you more flexible and improve your strength and performance in the gym pretty quickly. So if you do nothing else from a movement perspective, get into joint mobility. Look those things up and search for my Shinbox product out there on the internet if you think that might be helpful. I think it will be. Tip number 7. Start getting a better mindset. And what I mean by that is get into one of these podcasts. Hey, streaming has brought the ability for audio podcasts and vlogs and such like that to all of our lives. And most of us, we might not know somebody who's a good mentor, or we can't afford to have somebody like that in our lives necessarily, but that's no excuse with podcasts and such that can help to give you tips and tricks and bring other people's experiences into your life, so that way you can start living your life more optimally. And there's 4 podcasts that I highly, highly recommend that I think are very apropos for this audience on T Nation. And so here they are. First one, the cultural phenom, Dr. Jordan Peterson. He is a psychologist and an educator, and he's had a huge amount of experiences both clinically and in politics, but speaking to people to help them do practical things to change their lives. His book, The 12 Rules for Life, is excellent, but his podcast is fantastic because it gets into deep thoughts on psychology, spirituality, and religion, mental health, and a slew of other things that he breaks down and then gives you practical things to start working on and to change your mindset on how the world works in order to improve your quality of life and your optimal experience of life. Another one is Mike Menzel's High Intensity Health podcast. I love his approach. He was a mentee of the late great Charles Poliquin, one of my mentors as well. And he delves very deeply into fitness and diet and exercise. He gets into weight loss and hormone optimization and a lot of other things, but he breaks it down into really digestible bite sizes and gives you practical tips on how to improve all of those things that I just mentioned that he talks about, as well as other things too. And he's extremely entertaining in his presentation. So Mike Menzel and High Intensity Health. Another one that's extremely entertaining and informative, and he spans a slew of different types of topics, is the Joe Rogan Experience. Joe Rogan was a comedian turned MMA fighter, and he has a very great presentation style, and he interviews a lot of the world's best experts on a lot of different subjects, from money and finances to conspiracy theories. He talks to Navy SEALs often, and some of the best and brightest in medicine and health and fitness. Get into Joe Rogan. You won't be disappointed. He can be a little jarring at times, but he's always entertaining. And then the last one, right here on the on T Nation, is the Fit Pants podcast with Chris and Danny Shugart. It's just an entertaining, very short format podcast on sex, exercise, nutrition, fun, and lifestyle things. You won't be disappointed. They're friends of mine, and I get to listen to them as often as I can. Tip number 8, read a book every month without fail. With all this extra time from disengaging from technology, so that way you have more time, as well as more sleep, ideally, you have time to read a book every month. And there's some really great books that will change your mindset and are entertaining and such like that. So here are 4 nonfiction books and 4 fiction books that I think that would be extremely good for you to get your teeth into, and talk to your friends. They'll have others. So 4 nonfiction books. First one, How to Win Friends and Influence Others. This is one of those books that I try to read every year by Dale Carnegie. It is a book on how to interact with people, particularly in a professional setting, but also in relationships, in order to have better relationships with them that are more productive for you as well as your friend or professional colleague. The 80-20 Principle by Richard Koch. It is a really good approach to looking at how to break down tasks and problems, so that way you put in less effort to get more effect. And the principles are well bore out in the research from psychology and sociology, and will help you kind of get the inside track on better performance in your life, in relationships, in professional, and maybe even in financial and exercise as well. So 80-20 Principle by Richard Koch. The other one, and this one's a fun one, I discovered decade plus ago, is the 4-Hour Work Week, or the 4-Hour Body for that matter, by Timothy Ferriss. Timothy Ferriss is one of those cultural phenoms that has gone out, and because he's very interested in his own performance and how to improve it, he's learned and he's paid for the best mentors in fitness and nutrition and medical and finances and business and such like that. And he's taken the essence of all of those experiences and boiled them down into very actionable things. So even though he doesn't advocate for working only 4 hours a week, the idea is that if you get efficient and you understand those essences that I just talked about from these individuals that he's learned from, then you can employ them in your life and get more out of your life with less effort and more enjoyment. And then lastly, The Body Has a Mind of Its Own. I'm a doctor. I love things that help educate my patients and my clients on how their body works better, so that way they have a better relationship with their body and are less afraid of when things happen, like pain and such like that. So The Body Has a Mind of Its Own by Sandra Blakesley is one of those books that talks about how this and this, the body and the mind, are integrated, and how the experience that we have every day is very subjective, and how the body informs the mind in order for it to become as optimally functional as it can be, and when it breaks down, how that appears. So things like out-of-body experiences and such like that. So that's The Body Has a Mind of Its Own by Sandra Blakesley. On the fiction side of things, number one, 1984. If you've been around and alive over the last 2 years and conscious, chances are you think things don't feel quite right. Well, I don't either. And 1984 is one of those dystopian fictional presentations on what the life looks like when government gets out of hand and it becomes dystopian. 1984 by George Orwell. Check that out. The Kite Runner by Khaled Hossein. It is an excellent book on the current state and the life of people in the Middle East. They're very tribal. They're things that people that we don't understand well because we don't get that mindset. And this is a great experience of how life is over there, particularly in the modern day with all the strife and conflict that is going on. Next one is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. It seems like a children's book, but really you can learn a lot about it. It has a spiritual bent to it, for sure, but it's extremely entertaining, and he presents life in a series of allegories in the interactions between these children and this lion Aslan. So it's one of those books that not only are entertaining, but after you finish the book, you will find yourself seeing how he sees the world and how we interact with it, and how the exploration of a relationship on the spiritual side of things changes people. And lastly, if you want a little bit of a scare, if you like that kind of thing, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley is fantastic. One of the original women authors coming out of the Victorian times. She wrote one of the very first and most successful horror novels in the terms of Frankenstein. And it's a great exploration of human nature. Check that one out. Frankenstein, Mary Shelley. And then lastly, you don't have to agree with it, and I'm sorry, don't be offended, but the Bible, get into it. It is a great exploration of not only some history, but the human endeavor to connect with the eternal. And if you don't get into the Bible, get into your spiritual readings and add that to your meditative prayer and contemplation in tips before. Tip number 9, fix your feet. Get better shoes. Most of us have terrible feet, especially in the United States or in highly industrialized first world type of environments. Most of us, we don't move as much, but we're all living on hard level surfaces that are extremely hard on the body, and most of us wear terrible shoes. And so our feet are fairly deconditioned, so they don't have much muscle on them and they don't move well. In fact, the shoes that we choose, most of us, immobilize your feet, and so those joints don't move. And one of the things to realize is that the foot has 33 joints, depending on the anatomy that you're looking at, has 33 joints in each foot. And those joints are reporting to the body what's happening from the ground reaction forces, which is everything that we do. Walking, squatting, jumping. If we're moving upright in gravity, our feet are a huge part of our physical experience and our performance. So if the feet are moving well and are conditioned well, then our bodies are ultimately living well. And well-working feet help to reduce the experience of back pain, hamstring tightness, and overall improve just performance in general. So how do you go about changing your feet? Well, the easiest thing to do is get better shoes. Myself, I'm a good friend of Steve Soshin, who is the owner and founder of Xero Shoes. And a good platform to put your feet in are shoes that have that more minimalist bent to it, and Xero Shoes do that. So check out the links below for that. But one of the things that I will recommend as well is get into a good movement practice that we talked about in tips before in order to improve the mobility of your feet, because getting into better shoes is great. Getting into those better shoes And being conscious about getting better mobility intentionally and developing strength is extremely important. And there's very simple things you can do. And very simple things are just getting those ankles moving, the toes moving, and then massaging your feet. So get better foot movement, get better shoes. Xero Shoes are my top recommendation there. Tip number 10. Get more vitamin D. Specifically, get anywhere from 4,000 to 10,000 IUs or international units into your body every single day. What does vitamin D do? Well, it is part of many different metabolic reactions in the body, but it activates and regulates 2,500 genes in the body. And so with low vitamin D, you can have problems with skin, hair, nails, muscle recovery, behavior, depression. And in fact, I had a patient here not so long ago that was having trouble in the gym, didn't understand it, was also having problems with depression and motivation and such. And when he finally got his vitamin D tested, and this guy's a young guy, his vitamin D levels were in the toilet. As soon as he started supplementing, within a couple of weeks, his motivation went up, his performance in the gym went up, he felt better, he was performing better at work, all of those things. So getting that vitamin D in is extremely important, and it can stave off a lot of diseases. But one of the most important things, especially in today's day and age, is that it affects your immune system. Without the proper amount of vitamin D, that is the number one correlative factor to people who respond poorly to disease, to viruses and bacteria infections and such like that. So if you want to avoid infections or at least severity of infection, get that vitamin D up. One of my favorite ways is iWell. Biotest iWell is fantastic. Not only does it have great vitamin D in it, but it also has beta-glucan in it, which is an immune system enhancer. It allows it to operate optimally. So then again, you're fighting off disease and you're keeping that level of health and performance at the highest level that it possibly can. So again, 4,000 to 10,000 IUs of vitamin D, and iWell is one of your best sources for that. Tip number 11. Put out the flame of inflammation. There's 4 things I'm going to suggest. First of all, inflammation is a state that your body gets into because of injury, because of disease, and also because of poor nutrition. It's your body's way of dealing with damage. So whether that damage be physical or physiological, because of nutrition or lack of nutrition, those types of things, inflammation is a big deal. And what it does is essentially it is an irritant to the body, it's an irritant to the system, but it prevents the body from recovering well. So again, from exercise, recovering from exercise, which induces inflammation on its own, or if you're getting sick, or if you have the potential of getting sick. And a lot of people are in a chronic state of inflammation, and it is contributing to their development of lifestyle diseases on a regular basis, and things like diabetes and other autoinflammatory diseases that can crop up over time. So a few really easy tips here. Number 1, get rid of linoleic acids in your body. Linoleic acids you find in vegetable oils, and they are in most things. Most processed foods have high amounts of linoleic acid. So get rid of those right away. Linoleic acids, as they're metabolized, become pro-inflammatory. So get rid of those. I'm not talking olive oil, but I'm talking most vegetable oils, corn oils, and things like that. Get rid of processed foods. Next, take a high quality fish oil supplement. Biotest Flame Out has got some of the best, and it has the proper amount of DHA and EPA, which are components of fatty acids that help to either increase or decrease inflammatory states. And the DHA in Flame Out is exceptional at helping to put out the flame of inflammation. Micellar curcumin, over the years, my patients have benefited a lot from curcumin supplementation for joint aches and pains, and just aches and pains in general, and people with autoinflammatory diseases, they benefit greatly from that too. Biotest has a product called micellar curcumin, which is 95 times more bioavailable, so your body absorbs it better than just curcumin with pepperine in it, which is what they used to sell. So the micellar curcumin, get some of that and start taking that. And then lastly, get more sunlight. Think of light like nutrition. You need a certain amounts of light to be optimally healthy. So to get more vitamin D, you need UV light, but too much UV light, of course, can cause skin damage and potentially skin cancers and such like that. But getting out in that sunlight is important for vitamin D. But another thing is that sunlight has what's called infrared energy in it. And infrared energy helps to put out the flame of inflammation and improve cellular function. So one of the ways that I help my patients do that is I have what are called Juve light panels. These are light panels that are designed to help deliver optimal amounts of infrared to help with tissue repair, decreasing inflammation, improving hormones and such like that. So get yourself a Juve light, even if it's just a spotlight one, that will help you tremendously and get more infrared exposure to improve performance of inflammation eradication. Lastly, tip number 12, get more sleep. Specifically, somewhere between 8 and 10 hours is optimal for most human beings. Now, I can survive on 6 hours, but I know that over time, my performance in the gym and professionally degrade if I'm not getting closer to that 8 to 10 hour range. And the research is proving that out. The problem is that you're probably got horrible sleep habits and you're not getting optimal sleep. So a couple of things to help you with that. Don't chintz on your mattress, get a good mattress and change your pillows out regularly, things like that. And put away that technology at least 2 hours before bedtime. Don't watch TV, anything with a screen of any kind. Don't do it before bed and you will get better sleep. The other thing that you can do, especially if you have bad sleep already, is get a good supplement. Melatonin and the things like that are really important to good sleep, and Biotest has a supplement called Z12, which helps that system, which helps you produce optimal melatonin and get that really good, deep, restorative sleep. Z12 is fantastic for that. And then one last thing, get outside. Early morning and late night exposure to infrared from the sun helps to set your circadian rhythms and helps to prime your brain for sleep. So these are your 12 tips to make this year your best year ever. Remember, these aren't New Year's resolutions. These are skills and tips and tricks that will help to optimize your life, both in the gym as well as professionally and in your relationships. And in general, just make you feel and perform at your best, so that way your life can kind of sift together and become a more integrated, optimized experience for yourself and the others around you. My name is Dr. Grove Higgins, and have a great year.